Getting back into writing after an extended break can sometimes be challenging. So I thought I would talk about some of the ways I've learned to make it easier for myself. The amount of time that you've actually been away from writing and what you did during that time can make a big difference in how easy or difficult it is to get back into it. If you simply took a vacation from writing for, say, a week or less, or if you just paused working on one project for a few weeks and instead were working on some other writing project, it's usually pretty easy to pick it back up again. On the other hand, if you completely stopped writing for a number of weeks or months, that is kind of a different story. I've had a couple times in the last few years where I took some of these extended writing breaks for a couple weeks or even months at a time, and sometimes coming back to it feels like you kind of have to teach yourself how to write all over again. So that's kind of what I'll be focusing on today. My first step when trying to get back into a writing project or writing in general is to reread. I know this one's a no-brainer. Even after a short break away from a project, my first step is always to reread at least whatever I was working on last. If it's only been a short break, then I don't feel the need to reread everything, just the last couple of chapters that I was working on. Personally, I write chronologically, so that makes this pretty easy for me. But if you don't, you'll just have to figure out what areas you're going to need to refresh your mind on. I also like to reread my notes. So with all of my scenes, I have a notes section and a description, as well as notes on changes that I want to make. So I read them and go over the details to get a refresh on what direction things were going in and just the little details of the story and characters. In the case of a longer break, which to me is maybe a month or longer, I usually like to reread everything that I have for a project, from the draft itself to the notes and character information and world building sheets, just like all of it. This really helps me to get reacquainted with the material so that I don't forget important details and I can figure out what I need to work on next. Also, this does just help get you excited for the story again. My second step is to have a plan. After going through everything that I feel like I need to, I have to figure out what to work on next. So depending where I left off, I might want to start with editing a few chapters or just dive right back into drafting. Sometimes editing a chapter or two can feel a lot easier than diving right back into drafting, so that can be helpful to ease your way back into it, but I know that does not work for everyone's process. Sometimes I do edit as I go, and sometimes I don't touch stuff. Kind of depends on the project and what my mood is like. So I recently stopped working on one project for over a couple of weeks. I had a plot hole that I took a while to figure out, and after that I needed a little break before I could come back to it. So this project needed a couple of big changes to the 40,000 plus words I had already written. So after coming back to it, I decided to go ahead and make those changes before continuing with the drafting to finish the story. Knowing overall what needs work makes it easier for me to get back into the project, because I feel like every stone has been turned, there are no big surprises for me hiding somewhere. If there is a lot to do, a list of changes and unfinished chapters is also helpful to me. Next is to have a goal. So when I stop writing completely, it can be really difficult to meet the same daily word counts as I did before. And it only gets worse the more time I've spent away from writing. After not writing for a long period of time, even a few hundred words can feel like pulling teeth, which is so frustrating. I know not everybody likes to use word count goals or set deadlines for themselves, so this might not apply to you, but when getting back into writing, I find it really helpful to have a way to track my progress. There is a little trick that I've learned that I have actually used recently, and I found it really helpful. For the first few days, just set a ridiculously simple word count goal. Like whatever you can absolutely do, 100 words, one page, whatever you can normally do in your sleep, just make day one and maybe even day two just so easy you can't possibly fail. After that, you can adjust accordingly. You can kind of use that to assess where you are and just work your way up to a normal daily writing amount over a week or so. After those more extended breaks from writing, it has taken me a long time to get back to my normal daily word count. For me, the most important things were having trackable progress and just being consistent. Another thing I like to do is write in sprints. I've been a big fan of writing sprints in the past, and while I no longer really use them in the day-to-day, they're a really helpful tool for me to get back into writing. It's very similar to the Pomodoro method, which has become very popular recently. Basically, you just set a timer for yourself, work only on writing for that amount of time, and then take a break for a predetermined amount of time. Once I really get into the writing zone, I like to write in 45-minute chunks. That is about as long as I can comfortably concentrate on writing before I start to lose focus. While trying to get back up to my daily word count goals, I like to use writing sprints, usually starting with ones that are shorter, like 10 to 20 minutes, and then working my way up to my usual 45-minute writing sessions with longer breaks between. Something else is keeping your mindset in mind. Focusing on rushing to catch up where I was before just is not helpful to me, and can actually make writing more difficult. Also, breaking things up into smaller goals helps tremendously. Another thing that I have to keep telling myself is that even when I'm not working on getting back into writing, a negative word count can still mean progress. Sometimes when I have to go back and make changes, my word count will go backwards and even into the negatives for a daily word count. But it's helpful to remind myself that sometimes things need to be taken away, and even though the numbers are going down or into the red, that doesn't mean a loss of progress. Progress is still happening, even though I'm taking away words. And the last little bit here is avoiding writing breaks in the first place. There are two main reasons I've ever taken breaks from writing. The first one would just be that life happens, and the second one would be writing or project burnouts. So the first one you cannot avoid. Life happens and you just got to get back on the horse. But for writing project burnout, there are some things that can help. For a little while now, I've been trying to make myself take a day and a half away from writing each week, and this seems to work pretty well for me. Sometimes I take this as 3 half days instead, depending on the week. A half off writing day for me is just where my word count goal is half of what it usually is. So some people can write every single day of the year and be totally fine. I am not one of those people, and it's very helpful to know if you are one of those people or not. If you just take little bits of time away here and there, jumping back into the story is a total breeze. You know, having the long weekend off if you're going to do something, coming back on Monday, it's not going to make a big difference. You're going to pretty much remember the story where you're at. You're going to be able to continue like you didn't take any kind of break. You know, you haven't forgotten any details, and you've rested your mind a little, and maybe even had some fresh ideas. But if you stopped writing for a month, coming back to it is way more difficult, and I think it actually makes my progress way slower. And much like getting back into writing after a break, getting back to YouTube after a break is a little bit of a process too. Kind of crazy that I've been mostly off of social media for the past year, but it has been really great to focus on my writing and my craft, and it's also been really helpful for my creativity too. So, you know, I will not be jumping back in with new videos every single week. It will probably be more of just when I feel like I have a really good video to share. You know, hey, it's a process. If you'd like to dive into the world of Alexia, you can check out the free short stories or the novels, which will all be linked down below. And that's all I got for you, so thanks for watching. Bye!